What if what you're holding on to is slowly killing you? My friend, it's time to blow that up. I'm Sarah Stansberry, coach, author, and recovering codependent. And on this podcast, you'll learn to break free from people-pleasing, heal from relationship wounds, and move beyond anxiety and self-doubt. Because sometimes you need to destroy what isn't working to build something beautiful. Welcome to How to Blow Up Your Life. Hi, everybody, and welcome to How to Blow Up Your Life. Today, we have an extra special guest with us. It's Dr. SG Gettman. They're a licensed naturopathic doctor serving individuals with chronic illness, burnout, and autoimmune conditions, while also maintaining a keen focus on prevention and health optimization. In addition to treating patients in their private practice, Dr. Gettman writes a Substack called Sunny Wellness, where they offer brighter insights about naturopathic medicine, wellness, and what it means to be human. Dr. Gettman also serves as a volunteer preceptor at a free clinic for LGBTQ+ migrant individuals. And remember, though Dr. Gettman is a doctor, they are not your doctor. And this podcast is intended for educational purposes only. It is not medical advice and does not constitute a patient-doctor relationship. If you have or suspect that you have a psychological or medical problem, contact your healthcare provider promptly. And for information on how to find a naturopathic doctor near you, you can visit https://naturopathic.org. That's naturopathic.org. Welcome, Dr. Gettman.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
I am excited that you are here. I appreciate your time. Today, we are going to talk about the importance of metabolizing your emotions, one of my favorite topics, for sure. This conversation started, I read your Substack. Well, I read your Substack, and you had this, what I thought was a really funny article about the importance of feeling your feelings, essentially, and how you could begin to do that in a complaint letter. And I just kind of love the way you flipped that, on its head a little bit. And so it kind of got the wheels spinning. And I thought, oh, maybe we could have like a really cool conversation about this topic. And so that's what we're doing now. So that's why we're here. I know that we've had a couple conversations just about your practice, how you serve your patients, and kind of your holistic approach to treating them and all of that. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that and kind of get into what does it even mean to metabolize your emotions and why is it important?
Yeah, absolutely. Emotions are meant to be experienced, processed, and expressed. And when we don't go through all of those phases, sometimes they manifest in physical ailments in the body. And a lot of my work has been, in addition to doing all of the, typical things of diet and lifestyle and supplementation and exercise and all of those things, is really working with folks to recognize their emotions first, recognize when they're having them, recognize what they are, and then process them in a way that allows them to move forward and not store it and not harbor whatever that feeling is, so that it then pops up later as a complaint.
Do you mean like a physical complaint?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me about, I know you've got a couple stories, but what happens, in my opinion, not only can they manifest in the physical body, they can also manifest in the emotional body, and impact your nervous system and all of those other things. But in the physical body, when you're treating patients, and maybe in your own experience, what does that even look like? What is your experience with this?
In patients, it pops up in all sorts of ways. Most importantly, I would say it pops up in terms of vague ailments. I have a, generalized abdominal pain is what we call it, or lots of headaches or insomnia or hair loss. And this isn't to say that, that those things aren't also potentially related to some other condition, right? We have to obviously check all of the big, wild, crazy stuff, and make sure that there's not, something serious going on. But oftentimes I find that the sort of vague complaints, there's an emotional component to it that hasn't been processed, uncovered, discovered, felt, and then, ultimately moved through. I had a really profound moment after my mother died. So my mother died in peak COVID, and because of the restrictions, we couldn't have the funeral. We couldn't go through, those typical rituals of grief. And we had to wait 8 excruciating months to finish that, complete the cycle of emotion. And in that time period, I developed, vague abdominal pain, like I talked about. And I went to my doc, and, she's great. And we did all of the testing, and we checked everything under the sun. And what came back is I had some candida. It wasn't shocking, right? In my grief, I was eating a lot of frozen pizza. And so we did the treatment. We did the typical treatment. I did the candida diet. I took the herbs. I, did everything under the sun. And it definitely got better. I won't lie. It wasn't, it resolved parts of itself. And I would say it was probably 70% better. And I was like, all right, this is what it is. Hopefully it will continue to get better. I'll keep doing the candida diet, whatever. And then we got to the funeral. We had the funeral those 8 months later. And right after the funeral, everyone left. The weekend was over. Sort of all of the big events were finished. And sort of warning here for the listeners, it's a little graphic, but I had this sudden urge to go have a bowel movement. And what came out of me was green sludge, I've never seen before and never seen since. And it smelled bad, and it was so horrible. And as soon as that finished, all of that the rest of that remaining vague abdominal pain was gone.
Oh, wow.
And I sort of had this moment of being that's interesting. I guess maybe there was an emotional component to that. And being able to complete the cycle, this horrible thing happened. We then have to wait in this turmoil phase. Then we complete the emotion, and it resolves. It was sort of this first, clear marker in my life of being oh yeah, there can often be, not always, there can often be an emotional component to physical complaints, and it's worth investigating.
With your story, it makes me think, I don't know, especially as women, I feel like I've been dismissed by doctors, during, oh, you're just imagining it, you're, whatever. These are legitimate physical manifestations. It's not that you didn't have a stomach problem.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Or that you don't have a headache. Those things are actually physically happening, but may have an emotional component to them, which I think is way different than you're imagining it.
I hate when people say that, oh, it's not real. It's only in your head. It's whatever. It's not. They're manifesting for you, and we have to take them seriously.
Yeah, they are. Man, I mean, it's creating illness or in your body. Was that an accurate way to describe that?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Dr. Sarah, you described kind of what can happen in your physical body.
Yeah.
From my training and from the work that I do, I know that, emotions that don't get metabolized properly, also, express themselves in your emotional body. And that's typically where I don't know, maybe it's just the work that I do, but I feel like that's typically why people will come to me or, begin doing some personal work, because they're not happy with what's happening in their emotional world or in their relationships or what have you. And, I think the same thing. I don't know if you experience much of that in your practice or you deal with much of that with your patients. Do you, or?
A little bit. My preference is that they also work with a therapist.
Yeah.
Sure. Yes, I have 45 minutes or 90 minutes in a lot of cases with folks, but that work takes a lot of time that, I know you don't have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can appreciate that. I think that, for me, when I'm working with people, and actually for myself personally, I find that if I'm angry about something, it's usually because have not processed properly and actually, experienced my feelings of anxiety, of nervousness, and through the lens of which the adult chair where I was trained, any type of anxiety is the result of unprocessed emotions. And so, you've got emotions that you're holding in, you have anxiety about it. And for some people, including myself, that anxiety manifests in anger. And, I think a lot of the world, experiences that. I think a lot of us walk around angry and mad. And
Yeah.
what it is unprocessed and metabolized emotion and all of that. So I think that getting to the bottom of it as well. So like not only can it impact your physical body, of course, which is really, it's just incredible that we're discovering all of this right now. And like that we have doctors like you who are really treating the whole patient and not just okay, well, oh, it's yeast, take this herb and be done,
Right.
be done with it, that it's more holistic. And, speaking of that,
before you get there, I just want to
yeah.
clarify that, sometimes from the medical perspective, sometimes anxiety manifests as an actual physical ailment, right?
Okay. Yes. Yeah.
Like, a lot of folks with anemia can have anxiety that comes out of nowhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, excluding all of those
Yes.
actual medical diagnoses, your thought there about anxiety, I think still holds true.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. So tell me a little bit about maybe some of the research that's been done or that you base a lot of your decisions of your practice on. And
Yeah. So there's so much good data, and there's also so much more good data going forward. Hopefully that will come out. I mean, some of the most recent data that we have is from 2023. So it's fresh, it's new, it's hopefully innovative. Yeah. So the other part of this that I think is interesting is, yes, it's the emotions that we express. And the other side of that is the emotions that we don't express. So the research calls it expressive suppression. It's mostly about activities in which like you are suppressing your reflexive emotion. So say you went to a play and it was really, really funny, but the people around you like didn't think it was funny. You would suppress your laughter. That's what they're talking about as expressive suppression. A 2023 review article suggested that those who have higher levels of expressive suppression, meaning that they don't let their laughter or crying, had higher levels of CRP. So CRP is a marker of inflammation in the body. And when, inflammation is high, every organ system is affected. And so it really underscores the importance of not only just expressing, but not suppressing the things that are trying to naturally come out of you, right? Laughter and crying are great things. A long time ago, I was a outdoor educator, and we had this song, and maybe you can link it in the show notes. It's very funny. It's a good song. And the song is called It's Okay to Cry. The words are like, it's okay to cry. Crying lets the sad out of you. It's okay to cry. It might make you feel better, which I love. If the younger we can teach kids to sort of let all of those things out, the better they'll be as adults. But yeah, just really making sure that as much as we're letting things out, we're also not suppressing the natural.
Yeah, because think about like how many times are you in a situation where you really can't? right? Like you really want to laugh, but you cannot laugh. Like it just wouldn't be appropriate, or you don't, it would be embarrassing or whatever, or even, crying.
Someone says something absolutely bonkers at a meeting and you're like,
Mhm.
have to maintain a straight face. And you're like, yeah, okay.
I mean, right. And
Yeah.
then do you make time for that later
Right.
to actually express that
Right.
so that you're not suppressing it?
Right.
Because it that the data about it increasing your inflammation markers
Is wild.
really wild when you think about inflammation.
Yeah. And that's what everyone's talking about now. It's like, how do I lower my
Yes.
inflammation? How do I lower my inflammation? Well, sort of a clarifying point about data is that just because emotional suppression increases the CRP, it doesn't always mean that. It's like the reverse, that expressing it decreases CRP. But in this case, it's also true.
Wow.
Processing and expressing emotions is associated with lower levels of circulating inflammatory proteins.
Okay. So if you want to
More
decrease your
data.
inflammation, you gotta laugh and cry.
You got to laugh and cry.
Get it out.
Yeah. And then, sort of outside of what's happening in the physical body, we think about what's happening in your life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like what else is happening in your life? And the data also is, decently clear on this, that greater suppression, again, not letting that out, independently predicted greater depressed mood and fatigue, lower self-esteem and life satisfaction, and less felt acceptance from close others, which sounds rough.
It does sound rough.
Yeah.
And I wonder, like, how many of us are just walking around with that?
Yeah.
That is absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
I just love it. I love it. Like, how are your patients receiving this information? I'm just curious.
I haven't seen the CRP clinically yet, though. I'm like waiting for that day. I'm like, are you someone that, initially came into my virtual office as someone who's doing a lot of suppression, and then, along with everything else that we're doing, are doing less suppression, and now your CRP is better? I would love to see that day clinically. I've not yet seen that. But, I don't hold back a lot as a person or as a doctor.
Okay.
And, I say a lot, like, how do you feel about that situation? I mean, that is a constant question I ask all the time. How do you feel about that? How does this situation feel in your body? And then sort of the moving into action part, right? It's like, once we identify the emotion, feel it in our body, then hopefully it will encourage us to take better actions. And if you feel that feeling in your body, and then the next action encourages you to eat a vegetable, well, that's a win in my book. And I hope in a lot of cases that the action inspires greater health outcomes. That's my goal.
We talked briefly in our little chat before the interview that you ask your patients how they make their decisions.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
On my new patient paperwork, I ask patients, and I have 5 questions on my new patient paperwork after the demographic information. And one of the questions is, how do you make decisions about your health? And for me, the question is sort of twofold. The first part is simply from a practical standpoint, like, I want to know how I fit into the equation. Are you going to talk to all your friends and then see me and then talk to them again before you decide what we're going to do? Or are you going to, you've decided that you want to see me and I send you our treatment plan and you you go for a walk and you come back to me and be like, we need to change part C on this problem, And I'm like, okay, great. Let's reevaluate. I use it as a starting point of questions of like, do you know how to make decisions and check in with yourself, right? Like, do you have that internal resourcing of like knowing how to know? Do you know how to know? And And knowing how to know is often about, do you know what your feelings are, and do you know where they are, and where do they live, and how to regulate and process them.
Are you connected to yourself?
Yeah. Are you
enough
connected to yourself
to understand what you want,
right,
and what you don't want?
right.
Wow. I loved how you talked about like just trying to gather data in terms of, is this person going to seek external validation to figure out what they want to do and how they're going to take control of their health?
Right.
Or are they going to go inside?
Right.
And let kind of their body be the wisdom
Right.
for what it is.
And there's no judgment, right?
Right,
Like wherever
right,
you
right.
walk in is where you walk in. And hopefully we can get you to a place where you are checking in with yourself before you're checking in with other people. Right. And
including you. I mean,
yeah.
I would imagine, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. My doctor loves it when I actually have checked in with myself and come prepared.
Right.
Oh, these are the things I need help with. I'm not sure what to do about 1, 2, and 3. This is how I'm feeling. This is what's happening.
I always start my patient, sessions of like, how can I help? What can I, where shall we start? Is my top 2 questions of, where shall we start and how can I help?
Yeah.
Because then hopefully people are coming in with, their list of like, I feel this happened. This is how I would like to resolve it. Or, I have this sensation in my body. I imagine it might be related to this terrible thing that my boss said last week. And we can't dismiss the medical side of it, right? Like making sure that it's not something more serious.
Well, right.
Yeah.
Which is again why it's so great that you have the expertise that you do and can assess those kinds of things and figure out like, where's this coming from, right? Is it something that your boss said, or do you have anemia?
Right? Yeah. Do you have anemia, or are you eating too many Doritos, or who knows? Making sure that we're following down.
Yeah.
All the parts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Looking at the whole picture.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, given kind of the benefits of metabolizing your emotions, right?
Yeah.
Why don't we do it?
It's not fun. It's not fun. We're really good at distracting. We're really good at distracting in this country, in this world, really. And when Instagram is giving you 1,000 data points an hour, which is absolutely wild.
Talk about this a little bit. Like, let's unpack this, because I think it's really important. I mean, my listeners will probably be around my age, and we all have teenager or young adult children who was, really were the first generation to grow up with like unvetted access to all of these things.
It's wild.
And it's a whole other conversation. But, as a parent, it really was impossible to monitor or, understand exactly what our kids were getting into, not just what they were being exposed to, but what their brains were taking in. So talk about the data points a little bit and
so
what that is.
Jonathan Haidt is his name, wrote a book called The Anxious Generation, which is a phenomenal book. And he talks about how 1 hour on Instagram gives you 1,000 different data points from scrolling.
1 hour?
1 hour.
Okay.
1 hour is 1,000 data points, which is absolutely wild when you think about it. Like, I don't know, pre-phones, I don't have the exact numbers, but like pre-phones, how many data points did you receive a day? I don't know. I don't think 1,000 an hour.
Right. So when you receive that many
data points, you've just been given 1,000 opportunities to not know what your feelings are. Right. And it's distracting. And likewise, as we're scrolling, we like have that pit in our stomach of like, we see something that triggers us, or we feel anxiety when we see something scary on the thing, or, you know, all these different trends, people popping out of nowhere. Like, you know, we're not meant, we're not meant to see that many things. You know, when you have that experience of emotion, either the numbing part of like, I'm just going to keep scrolling, or the like so many feelings or so many, you know, experiences that you just saw, that's a lot to process. And either way, whether you're numbing or you're not numbing and you're feeling all of those, it's pretty hard to process all of those emotions that you just witnessed. I worry more about the distraction side of things, right? You know, our world has given us so many different ways to distract ourselves from feeling our feelings fully and then processing them and moving into action afterwards. That what happens when you're on a screen for 15 hours a day and then you get into bed and it's finally you alone with your thoughts, and it just runs, you know, your brain just goes and runs with the ticker tape of anxiety or, you know, panic or insomnia or whatever it is. It just goes. And it's not fun, you know, and also, you know, we didn't talk about it yet, but there's obviously a trauma component to all of this of, you know, people have experienced some rough traumas, and those, I think it's worth noting, should be processed with someone who is really an expert. And there are things, one of my mentors says, there are things in this life that you cannot unknow. That once you know, open that can of worms, it's hard to close it.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really convenient for people not to want to process the emotions. And not in a judgment way.
Right. Yeah.
You know, it just is what it is.
Well, and I think we should make the note that we all do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
None of us are exempt. None of us are.
Absolutely not. No, you know.
It's really survival.
Yeah.
In a way, you know, because it's counterproductive, but sometimes the feelings get so deep that you think, you know, if I start down this path, I'm never going to get out of it. Like if I experience this grief or this sorrow, this pain, I may never come up for air.
Right.
But that's not really the truth.
Right. Yeah.
So what is the truth?
The truth is emotions only last for 90 seconds.
90 seconds.
90 seconds. And then oftentimes either we're replaying the emotion in our head as a physical sensation. Emotion lasts as 90 seconds.
Right.
Either we're replaying the sensation in our head and it's a story. Yeah, that's what's happening. Then we're creating an additional story around the story.
Well, right. And then we get like when we begin to ruminate on it, it just kind of keeps going and going and going. It has through infinity. I think that, you know, when you are connected to your body and when you're actually not on your head, but in your body, chin down, and you're processing emotion, if you can allow yourself to feel the whole thing, it's 90 seconds and then it'll be over. 90 seconds.
Yeah.
That was a massive eye opener to me when I learned that a few years ago. Because, you know, it is uncomfortable. It is uncomfortable. It's not, you know, a big party to feel your difficult feelings.
No, I wish someone would like drop down some streamers and be like, congratulations, you felt your feelings.
You did it. You did it.
That is not the case, unfortunately.
No, it's not, unfortunately.
No.
I know.
No.
I know. So, all right. I would love to talk about, so we've talked about kind of what it is, what the problem is, why it's important. How do we do this?
How do we do this?
How do we start?
Yeah. So before we talk about all of these things, I want to be really, really clear that being able to express out loud or say the words of what the feeling is not required. It's just
Okay.
you checking in, being like, I feel some type of way in my body, or, I had this experience and it has made something come up for me. But you don't need to be able to say to someone like Sarah, I feel mad, like that's not necessary. And so, yeah, assuming that you're aware and carving out time to process your emotions and feeling them in the moment, I separate them into two different categories. Things that you can do alone, which is just like, and then things that you can do with a provider. I say this all the time and everyone laughs every time, but I fully believe that the one song dance party is the most underutilized tool in modern medicine.
I agree.
Yeah.
Grey's Anatomy had it right.
Grey's Anatomy had it right. Just dance it out. Do you have a favorite song? Favorite dance it out song?
I don't, because I love music.
Yeah.
And so it's like a mood thing for me. Like, and I have so many favorite songs that it's hard for me to, to pick one.
Yeah.
So it just depends on the mood.
That's fair.
But, I think maybe I Will Survive might be a big one. That could be a good one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any kind of, I'm like a 70s girl. It's weird, but yeah.
Yeah. Huh. Interesting. My go-to is I Am Here by Pink.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. There's something about being like, here I am. Like, I can do this. We can do hard things. Yeah, that is so great. Yeah, the one song dance party. We briefly talked about the complaint letter.
Right.
Writing it down. Writing it down. Whether you send that to anyone or not is totally irrelevant. It's like the act of writing it on a piece of paper or typing it out and really like letting those emotions move through you is so important.
One of the things I was going to say was that it is really proven that pen to paper helps you metabolize emotion. So I love, trust me, I am a computer person. I love doing all kinds of things, typing on the computer. And if that's what you need to do it. If they're doing that as opposed to doing nothing, definitely type it. But if you can get pen to paper, even if you can't read it after, like half the time I write stuff, I'm like, I don't even know what I just wrote.
Yeah.
But it does really help you. It is a modality that can help you get things out of your body, I think.
Yeah. You gotta move through it. Yeah. And likewise, moving through it, movement, my favorite.
Yeah.
And there's sort of this belief in our culture that it has to be, the more intense it is, the more it's going to move, which is, if that's you, that's you, but I think that there's equally something as powerful in some like candlelit yin yoga and some gentle stretching. And, sometimes I'm like down on the floor doing the 5-minute Pilates and that's it. It's 5 minutes. It's not, this big long thing. And likewise, it might be, right? It might be, I know you had said before that you like weightlifting.
Yes.
Yeah, like weightlifting or like I was a marathon runner a long time ago. And then like everyone in my life knows like, oh, SG's running again. They're processing some big emotions. But it doesn't, those things are all great. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be so intense.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really important point because there is this kind of attitude that you have to do these things a certain way. And not everybody's wired the same way. I mean, I know that I can meditate a little bit, but it doesn't, I meditate really for my emotional regulation. I don't use that to process emotion, I don't even use it to tap in. In fact, I've discovered for myself, just the way I am, that I need to actually be doing something else, like with my body, so that emotions can come up for me. So I think driving is huge. Like, it's almost like my arms and legs need to be doing something different
Yeah.
so that my whatever's happening from, I don't know, the heart up or whatever can actually, my brain can just get distracted a little bit so that things can come up for me. Sitting, sometimes journaling helps. Sometimes it does.
Yeah.
Sometimes it does not.
Right.
But if I'm walking, that helps a lot. Weightlifting for me is very, very important. It's a great way just to get things out of my body. And it's been, I've had to, for me, especially in light of kind of like the things that I'm passionate about, which is like emotional health and wellness.
Yeah.
So easy to get caught up in that trap of I have to do, oh, well, I got to sit down and do my quiet time. I got to do my this, I got to do my that. And I've realized like, no, that's just not the way it's going to work for me. The way it's going to work for me is I need to be in touch with my body. I do need to be embodied. And then I let that determine what it is that I need.
Right.
Instead of somebody else telling me what it is that I need.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't have to be like this month I'm going to do weightlifting and next month the structure is not required. Right. Like sometimes structure liberates and I, am so for that, like having a plan of action going forward, but it can be like I wake up and I, had some experience on the freeway and okay, today I need to go to Pilates. Okay, tomorrow I might just need to like dance it out 5 times. It doesn't have to be this like rigid structure that we all, seemingly want to give.
I know we do, don't we?
Yeah.
I feel like in an era that, we want to be free and all this other stuff, we really box ourselves in, don't we?
I know. Yeah. Yeah.
Freedom. I must meditate 20 minutes a day. I mean, like, okay.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. Love meditation. Love gratitude journals.
Mm-hmm.
Not always the answer. Not always. No.
Speaking of like journaling, this having this dedicated time, the feelings time.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So for anyone listening, also, if you haven't watched the Apple TV show Shrinking, there's a great example of this in the show. I loved the show so much.
Me too, by the way.
So yeah. So they demonstrate this so well. The feelings time. Yeah. So if you are not someone who like is super good at feeling your feeling in the moment, or maybe has a backlog of emotions, setting a timer, sitting down. I sometimes still do this, and I set a timer. I take an everything shower, so I'm like zen and calm, and I like put serums on my face, and then I lay on the couch with my electrolytes, and I set a timer, and I'm like, we will have 5 minutes of feelings time. And, the goal here is to like only feel the feelings. You don't have to like, there's no spiraling allowed. You feel the feelings in your body, and then the timer goes off and you can go back to your regular life if you want. You might have those 5 minutes and be like, oh, that's interesting. I feel better, or I need more minutes. But really starting small, especially if you're someone who this is not part of their regular practice.
Right.
Yeah. Just really checking in and being like, all right, I felt mad about that situation. I felt, whatever. And if you don't know what your feelings are, also, a really good tool is the feelings wheel. Do you know this? Yeah.
I know the chart. I don't know. I don't know if I know the wheel.
Yeah, there's a wheel, and you start on the outside. If you can't identify what the feeling is, it sort of brings you into the core feelings. And that might be something you have on your fridge. You print it out and you put it on your fridge, and you just start, naming and identifying the feelings in the moment. And then, the other things that I think about are working with a provider. There are so many modalities that we all have, and every provider has their preferred modality. Just, a random list here of things that I think about: emotion code, NET, tapping, somatic experiencing, brain spotting, EMDR, particularly for trauma stuff,
Yep.
acupuncture, homeopathy. Yeah, all of those things are so, so beautiful.
And they can be helpful on their own. They can be helpful in different seasons of things. And, I don't know. I just feel like, there's moments that I've done acupuncture, and then there are, seasons I've done EMDR, and it doesn't always have to just be one thing that works.
Right.
Giving yourself the flexibility is so important.
Right. And, just also honoring, if this is new for you, there's no rush. There's no, there's no place that you have to be. I say all the time, we all become who we're supposed to be at our own pace. And, your pace might just be really slow in this very beginning part. And there's no rush. You'll be where you are.
And I think it's important to remember you are in the exact right place.
Yeah.
Wherever you are.
Yeah.
We're all just moving forward, like with where we are.
Yeah.
It's life.
Yeah.
I'm no different. You're no different.
Yeah. Also, it's worth stating here that neither of us are experts at these, right? Like, I still have my moments where I'm like, all right, this week has been a little rough. I need to have some feelings time, or, I need 5 sessions of the 5-minute Pilates today, or, whatever, when things come up. And eventually, there's seasons where it's like really natural too. It's like the thing pops up, you feel the feeling, you process it through, and you're good. And then there are other seasons of life that are harder, and you really lean on all of your tools, and that's the gift. And making sure that you have all those tools is even better.
Absolutely. What an incredible conversation. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right, guys, we've got to metabolize these feelings. Not only does it harms your emotional body, but it could harm your physical body as well. And I think even more reason to do the work a little bit. All right. Thank you, Dr. Gettman. Thank you, all of these listeners, these great listeners. Thank you for listening today and for trusting us on your journey. I really appreciate that.
Yes.
If somebody wants to learn more about you, how do they do that?
Yeah. I'm predominantly on Substack these days. My Substack is Sunny Wellness. And then if you would like to work with me, my website is summersunintegrative.com. I'm occasionally on Instagram at Dr._Gettman. Very rarely, but occasionally.
Okay.
And otherwise, yeah.
Okay. So if you want to work with Dr. Gettman, go check out our Substack. There'll be the link, we'll put the links to all of your places in the show notes, and then any promotional material that we've got as well. And if you are listening to this and have questions for me or Dr. Gettman, you can email me at sarah@howtoblowupyourlife.com. And I will do my best to answer them. And if I cannot answer them, then I will get somebody to answer them. And we would love to hear your questions. All right. I think we did it.
We did it.
I think we did it. Thank you so much. And everybody have a great day. Thank you for listening to How to Blow Up Your Life. If you like this show, please like and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it, and it helps more than you know. You can join me on Substack at sarahstansberry.substack.com, where we continue these conversations. You can also follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Sarah Stansberry. This podcast is produced by Shout More Quietly Productions. Music by Jay Ferris. All links and information are in the show notes. Now go forward and blow up your life.